Japanese media has expressed relief after the South Korean top court declined to rule on the constitutionality of a deal on victims of Japan's wartime sex slaves.
The deal was signed in 2015 between Seoul and Tokyo, and under the agreement, Japan apologized to the victims and provided $8.8 million to a fund to help the women.
Both governments confirmed that the issue had been resolved finally and irreversibly, and this was reached by former South Korean President Park Geun-hye and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe.
But in 2016, a group consisting of the so-called comfort women and their family members filed a lawsuit asking the court to strike down the agreement as unconstitutional. Today's court decision comes nearly 4 years later, but not in their favor.
And this decision comes days after South Korean President Jae-in and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe held talks for the first time in more than a year. And CNA's Michio Ishida again has this report.
Political watchers in Japan were concerned. What if the verdict called the 2015 Comfort Women Fund unconstitutional? If it did, what about the 1 billion yen or $9 million Japan already put in and paid to a number of comfort women? The 2015 agreement expresses Prime Minister Abe's sincere apologies and remorse to all those who suffered as comfort women. And what would have happened to the slightly improved ties between the two countries this month if it was a different verdict? Well, Prime Minister Abe and South Korean President Jae-in held an official bilateral summit for the first time in over a year. They agreed to continue dialogue. Ahead of the meeting, Japan partially lifted an export restriction it slapped on substance vital for South Korea's semiconductor production. But Japanese Foreign Minister Toshimitsu Motegi said it's most crucial to resolve the forced labor issue. Last year, South Korea's courts called for Japanese companies to compensate wartime forced laborers. Relations deteriorated since then. Japan claims based on the 1965 bilateral agreement, all wartime issues have been resolved. There is no sign this issue will shift towards a positive direction. Michio Ishida, CNA, Tokyo.
South Korea's top court has declined ruling on the petition against the 2015 deal, saying that the agreement is a political one and therefore not subject to its formal review.
The court also says that it cannot be said that the rights of the victims of the Japanese military were infringed upon by this agreement. In June of last year, the government had also asked the court to turn down the petition. CNA's Lim Yeon-suk has more on the ruling.
The panel of 9 judges spent nearly 4 years to review the case. On Thursday, they unanimously agreed to dismiss the petition filed by a group of South Korean women who were forced to work as sex slaves while Korea was under Japan's colonial rule. The Constitutional Court President Yoon Nam-seok said the deal was a political one, and unlike a treaty between the two countries, this deal did not create legal responsibilities on the parts of the two governments, and thus it was not subject to the Constitutional Court's review. Dong-jun, the lawyer representing the victims, spoke briefly to reporters who were outside the courthouse, saying the decision was regretful.
많은 이제 어르신들이 받았던 상처들, 이런 부분들을 좀 더 어루만져 줄 수 있는 그런 이제 기회가 될 수 있었는데 그 부분을 갖다가 제대로 이제 헌재가 다 하지 못해 준 게 아닌가 하는 아쉬움이 있습니다.
He also said it was time for the government to review the agreement and kill it or renegotiate it with the Japanese government. This agreement was reached with Japan under the previous South Korean government of Park Geun-hye. After President Jae-in took office in 2017, he did acknowledge that the deal had serious flaws, and South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa has reiterated the government's position that it would not recognize nor renegotiate the deal. The comfort women have been demanding an official apology from the Japanese government and an official compensation too. They want Tokyo to admit that the comfort women were forcibly taken to the military brothels, and thus Tokyo has a legal responsibility to compensate them and not treat this as a moral issue. But the Japanese government insists that all compensation claims were settled by a 1965 bilateral agreement. There were hopes that the court's decision could pave the way for the two countries to improve ties, which have strained in recent years due to this dispute and other historical issues. Lim Yeon-suk, CNA, Seoul.